the Netherlands. I'll refer a little bit to the overall Dutch situation, also with remark to some of the discussions we had yesterday. So this is our location. We're a University of Applied Science located in the north of the Netherlands, Leeuwarden. It's a city of about 100,000 people, and in Holland it's considered a rural area. So even though Amsterdam is only 1.5 hour drive, it's considered to be far away. We're there's a lot of more farming and not really. The education level in our region is a little lower than the average. And we're in our region the biggest knowledge organization. About 12,000 students, 1,200 staff, and 70 different types of studies. Most is a bachelor level, and I'll explain a bit about that on. We have all the fields of expertise, so it's about technology, about economy, business, about healthcare, about education, so a very broad field of expertise. Practice-based research, there's a lot of discussion what should be the name of this type of research, applied research, practice-based research. The story in the Netherlands starts basically in 2001, and before that time, the polytechnics or University of Applied Science, they were really only schools. There was no research at all. It was really education, education, and education. But very professionally oriented. So historically, this polytechnics, they were started often from companies that needed certain expertise. For instance, the army that needed technology. And in 2001, let's wait a few minutes. And in 2001, the government said, well, we want to improve the quality of these polytechnics, because they are very good schools, but basically the curriculum of today is the same as the curriculum of 10 or 20 years ago of many schools. And when you come into school, you already know what is the things that you will learn in the third or fourth year. And society is changing this fast. You cannot, just learning certain subjects is not enough. Education is not so much about knowing your field, but it's more about learning how to gain new knowledge in a general way, because the knowledge you learn today, it is old in 2 or 3 years. So then you learn something, you did a nice exam, but it's useless information, because by the time we leave school, nobody cares about that information anymore. So it's more that the students need to know a new way of learning, but the same goes for the teachers. You cannot be an expert in your field and teach the same subject for 10 or 20 years, because what you teach is totally old at the moment. And just an example, what we had in the field of education, so we teach we train the teachers of the future. And they arrived, and we taught them with like the old-fashioned chalkboards kind of way of teaching. And then they arrived at the schools, and there were all the digital video smartboards. And our students didn't know how to handle the smartboards, so the school first had to teach them how to use these smartboards, and then they could only use them in their organization. And they said, well, thank you, you have this newly trained people. They come fresh from school, but they don't know anything about the new things. So we wanted that to turn around. So we wanted our students to be advanced. So if they would arrive in an organization, they would be the ones that know all the new things, and they can influence the organization in the right direction. 2001, the first, it's called lectoraat, I'm not sure what is a good translation in English, was introduced in Holland, and now there are about 500-600. And just to give some figures about the discussion of yesterday, In the University of Applied Science in the Netherlands, about 97% of all education is really focused on bachelor education. So of the 420,000 students, about 408,000 are bachelor students only. If you look to all the universities in the Netherlands, so the applied and the research university, 2/3 of all the bachelor students, they study at a University of Applied Science. So we are really the bachelor factory, we call it sometimes. If you look to the master students, 9 out of 10 goes to a research university. So we have some masters, but it's really a small part of what we do. So of all the more than 100,000 master students in the Netherlands, because the first 3 years are called bachelor, also in the research university, 9 out of 10 is on a research university. And if you look to the figures of money, just to give you a little bit thing about that, this is comparing two universities. I got it just this morning, so I'm not sure if the figures are exactly right, but we have about 12,000 students at my school, and we have a budget of 80 to 100 million a year. But if I look to a comparable research university, University of Twente, they have less students than us, but their budget is about 3 times as much as ours, which means they have about 200 million extra, which is all for research. But of course this influences also the quality of the education. So just to show that the situation of the Dutch polytechnics is not like a dream situation, we are really an educational focus, and as we discussed yesterday, the change for us is that we want to introduce this research in our curriculum, but not for research's sake, because we will never compete with the research universities. And this is a government choice. I mean, they could level the playing field, but that's not going to happen so fast. So it's more like an impact on the organization, but not meant to make this kind of two organizations similar, because that's definitely not the case. So why applied research at the polytechnics? Basically it's about the knowledge triangle, as we call it. So the professional field, the education and the research, which we aim at bringing together. So here you see them coming together, and each of them should benefit from it. So the education should benefit by professional teachers, enthusiastic students. The research should benefit from it by applied knowledge, or more general knowledge, it can be the same. And the organizations should be more innovative and competitive, so that is about the SMEs or the other organizations. And overall, what we need is kind of relevance for society, because that's why we pay taxes, and then that's why the tax is funded to the education, of course. And then how do you measure it? So the quality of education you can measure with all this kind of audits, how good are you performing. The quality of the research you can of course measure by some kind of output, and this is a whole discussion, what is the output that you should measure for the quality of this type of applied research, because it should not be peer-reviewed journals, we think. But then what is a good measurement? So this is again the sheet with the 5 flags we discussed yesterday. And for the SMEs and the other organizations, the output often is of course money, but in the long term, new products or new results or new knowledge, so they should be more competitive or more innovative because of this. And of course this all intermingles to make the fusion complete. And this is, well, life should not be easy, it's an interesting puzzle, so to say. So that's why we call it the knowledge triangle. Just a little bit about myself to explain a little bit where I'm coming from. I have a background as an industrial design engineer. So this is, for instance, one of my projects is the desk for an airport in Moscow, or this is signage for a Hong Kong metro. This is an interesting project we did at TNO, which is a contract research organization where I worked before I joined education. It was a cooperation with the Delft University about new ways of transport. And by the way, in the bottom it's me and the Dutch Queen, who was then still reigning the Netherlands, and I was still young and handsome. I'm still handsome, but not young anymore. Okay, and this is like a technology field that I worked in just before joining the university. It's more in the wearable sensor technology. This is just a little bit to boast about who I am and how great things I did. No, not true, but it's a little bit to show where I come from. And I once studied industrial design in Delft a long time ago. And I liked to go to education, but I thought I only want to go to education when I have at least 10 years of experience in the field, because I don't want to go straight from education and tell others the same things that I've learned, but not knowing anything about it in real life. So after 10 or 15 years, I thought the time was ready, and then I discovered that to be successful in this university, you need a PhD thesis. And we had an interesting experience with this project. We did this project for 2 or 3 years with TU Delft, and there was a guy that did a PhD thesis on it. And he did it actually with Professor Brezet. And the problem was, in his thesis, he basically wrote down that we did everything wrong that we could do wrong. And that we were total fools and we didn't understand the real world. And I was really angry with this guy. I said, well, here's this scientist who doesn't know anything about running projects, doing innovation, and he tells me that I'm totally wrong. So I got to Professor Rosetta at the defense of his thesis, and I said, this is really wrong. You have this PhD researchers, we give them all the knowledge of our organization, and then in their thesis they burn us down, tell us we do everything wrong, and they're smarter than us. This is not right. And then he said, well, why don't you do your own thesis and prove he's wrong? I said, I will just do that, and it's finished in half a year. And then, of course, the half a year became a little bit longer, but I finished the thesis in 2010 based on, but it was more evening hour work, to be honest. And of course, I proved I was right. Now, you can't say that I found out that science is more complicated than that. I thought my 10 years was over, it became 15 years or so. I thought it's time to go to education to teach a little bit what I had learned in reality. And then during that period, this whole concept of lectoraat was introduced in the Netherlands. And I thought that was really interesting to go for, because it's kind of a combination of research, application, and education. So, this is us, and when I came in there were 3 of us, and now there are 20, so this is already a few years ago. We even introduced our kind of new nice research clothes, because we didn't have that. And the question is why, what is our specific focus at our university? And as I said, we're located in the north of the Netherlands, and what we wanted to contribute, we had a lot of discussions about it, of course, is the transition of our province, our region, to be a smart, sustainable, inclusive region. So to go to be part of the big European economy instead of just being a sad, remote region. And I think that's recognizable for some of you also, that you're located not in, like we're not Amsterdam or New York or Berlin or London, but we're a little bit far away. But we still need this innovation, because we don't want all our students, after they finish, to move directly to the big cities and to work there. Because that's a little bit what's happening, that people, when they're 18 years old, they leave the region and they come back when they're 45, have a family and want to have a nice house in the region again. But we want them to stay. So we as an organization want to be, we call it the innovation engine of the region. So, because we cover the whole field of expertise, and I think that our students are the future professionals of the future, and they should be the innovators of tomorrow. So when they leave our place, they should not know just a lot of head knowledge, but they should really be advanced in knowing how to change their surroundings. So as I mentioned, we have this very broad field of expertise, so it's from health and well-being, so the nurses of tomorrow, the teachers of tomorrow, we have a policy school, economy, business, the technology field, so engineering, all types. So it's quite difficult to find a common area in this. And because we are really small in research compared, again, to the big universities, we have to find something common, because otherwise we are like some people just all do their small thing. But it's much stronger when you can have a shared mission, even though the field is rather broad. And what we quite recently said is like, well, we can consider our professionals, our students, but they will be the professionals of tomorrow, as a designer within their organization. So a nurse or a teacher, you can consider them a designer. And it's a quote, curious if anybody knows who said this. Everybody designs, who devises courses of action aimed at changing an existing situation into a preferred one. Anybody knows who this quote comes from? Sorry? Anybody know who said this?
No, the sentence.
It's there, yes. Yeah.
Should it be a designer?
That's not a designer, it's a guy that had the Nobel Prize in Economy. It's called Herbert Simon. It's already 1969, so what is it, 40 years ago or more, 50 almost? And what he said is, the intellectual activity that produces a material artifact, so products, objects, is not different fundamentally from the one that prescribes a remedy for a sick patient, like a doctor, or the one that devises a new sales plan, like an economist, for a company, or a social welfare for a state, so it's a politician. So this design paradigm, according to Herbert Simon, who is of course my friend, you can use it for different fields of expertise, and that's what we thought we want to apply. Of course, it's also the discussion, you know, about the T-shaped professional, where you have the kind of specific knowledge of your field combined to the more transferable skills. So that's kind of the shape that we are aiming at. So it's not that we want only to be these generalists that know a lot about, that know a little about everything but nothing about a lot, but you want both. You want a specialist, but combined, who knows how to look broader than its own field. So this is our new strategic plan, where we write down all the plans for the university, and then this is kind of part of what we are aiming at, and then it benefits, of course, all the parts of the organization. But what we did is we looked around for international inspiration. So where can we learn this way of thinking? And for instance, there's the D School of Stanford, and in Berlin they have this, but they were a little bit arrogant, to be honest, so we couldn't really cooperate with them. There's quite some, like the Harvard, they have this Harvard iLab, and also they were a little bit arrogant, but I don't know. But then we arrived in the Finland, and already yesterday it was mentioned Aalto University, and they were not so arrogant, and they were friendly, and they were doing very interesting things. Because some of you may know, Aalto is a kind of, they wanted to be the innovation university, and therefore they merged 3 universities of technology, of business, and of media art, because they said if you want to be innovative, you cannot stay within your range of your own field. You have to cross the boundaries of expertises, and to be able to cross these boundaries, it's much better to be in one organization instead of having to cross one. Somebody crossed boundaries there outside. I know it's they're killing a kid. Can somebody please save it from? No, okay, it's safe, I think. So we visited the design factory. It was initiated by my colleague Professor Bruzet, who will do a lecture this afternoon. And the nice thing is that they say, well, we have our own field, but also we have this international network of comparable factories. And we said, well, what is it? Well, he said, well, you just start one and you'll find out. So we visited them, we signed a kind of memo of understanding, and then we thought, well, we'll start our own. And the concept of the factory, it's actually, started because of this merger. So they had to merge these three organizations, this technology, the business and the media art, and they created a kind of area where these people could meet each other and work together, and this they called the Design Factory. It is because it's an old factory. Ours is located in a prison, so we thought we should call it the Design Prison, but that doesn't sound so attractive. Anyway, it's a physical platform, so physical means a space, a location, but also a mental platform, which is more like the organization and the things you can do there. To create, devoted to creative, so that's more about the design, interdisciplinary, industry-engaged research and development. It's a unique collaboration environment for students, researchers and business practitioners. So I think our own focus is a little bit broader than the business, but still it's very, I like the concept. So last week we had, we started actually in November, and we had our status update, so I took some slides also there, but this is where we are located in the Netherlands, so the northern part. This is the logo of the Design Factory, so, and what we want is to be part of the kind of innovation network of our region, so not only do it in our place, but to link places. Then it's nice to have friends in, say, Shanghai, Melbourne, Santiago, or New York, and it's also a little bit to boast in our region, like, oh yeah, I can call my friends in New York and say, oh yeah, really? And yeah. And the good thing is that it's true, so it kind of works. And then we can share experiences. And this is where we are in our region. So what we aim at is to link research education with public institutions, bigger companies, so the smaller companies, citizens or other government, like NGO kind of organizations. And it comes together in this building on the right side. It's called the Blokhuispoort, which is this old prison in the middle of Leeuwarden. And the picture on the right is more the metaphor of co-creating and working on new solutions. And we had the advantage that Leeuwarden was just elected to become the cultural capital of 2018 of Europe, and that helped because there was a vision behind that called Peniche, which in Dutch is, in English is like open community, where it's really about how to get the citizens involved in changing the region. And one of the parts of this ambition for this cultural capital was this old prison. This is the building. If you come to visit Leeuwarden, you're always welcome, and then we'll give you a nice coffee there. You can get in and you can get out, I promise. This is the entrance. You enter the hall. It used to be closed, now it's an open place. And this is the top view. And we're not the only ones there. There are quite some other things. So there will be a library will be located there. The main building of the cultural capital is there. But our building is basically the red and orange one in the left or in the top. And this is what it looked like not so long ago, and I like this picture especially. It's this ugly old building, and on the one hand that was bad, on the other hand it was good, because we came from this, you saw our nice building in the first picture. This is really a brand new picture, a famous architect, but the problem is I can't change anything there. If I want to put one plug in the wall, I have to sign 12 forms, I have to wait 3 months, 6 committees have to have a meeting about it, I have to find budget, it has to be in the budget of next year, which means that it's now June, that means in October I have the budgets finished, and in January perhaps I have it or not, and then I can put my plug in the wall or buy a new table or something, and then I cannot just buy a cheap table somewhere, because we have this big contract, so I have to buy it at a certain supplier because of a European system of buying things, which means that the same table I can buy for 50 euros somewhere on the market, now I have to buy it for 500 euros because of these European rules. So it's good, it's beautiful, but it's not really flexible and innovative. Whereas in this old prison, we had our opening in November, and in October we still didn't have anything finished, but then we worked all, and then it was quite nicely looking after that. We kind of had that. If we want to change there something, we think about it today, we can do it tomorrow. So what we want to be is a little bit an open area. It's a little bit less organized, but it's a kind of creative space to do things that you cannot do within your organization. So this is a little bit the flow of our system. I have a nice précis about it, but I will not go too much into detail, but just to show a little bit the parts. So what you see on the left side is the societal challenges that we want to take as a starting point for our innovation projects. So in our case it's about clean energy, the aging society, the food because we're agricultural region, the water because also water is a strong focus. And you see the lines through it, the green blue lines, that's the projects that we do with the students and the teachers. Then in the top, then the second row, you see this energy companies, healthcare organizations, agricultural organizations, local government. That's more the institutions that we have to deal with, a little bit bigger organizations. And what we want is to link them to the top part, which is more the creative network of the teachers and the students and the researchers. And then in the middle bottom, you see the spaces that we have, like the physical spaces, and then kind of the tools and methods. And at the right side, you see the products and the services and the business that we want to create. So we go a little bit from the left to the right. And what we did is we created this great plan. I had a budget of 10 million in mind for 5 years, and I thought, oh, now I'll go to the government and they'll sponsor us. But they didn't want to give anything. They said, yeah, it's a nice idea, but sorry, our money is gone and we just had elections. So what we basically did, we started it with small funds from our own school, and now after a year or two being active, now the government starts to see like, oh, this is really interesting, perhaps we should support you. So this is our opening event in November. We work closely together with the vocational school, so they have, for instance, a rapid prototyping laboratory and we share our facilities. Then what we do is student projects from either the schools, the existing schools, and we have some things of our own, but the main is that we are a platform for other ones. For instance, this is an interesting project we did. Students, they worked for a company that sold solar products in Africa, and then they ended up making a kind of cooling system for milk for Maasai I don't know what is the English word, headers. Well, anyways, they have the cows. So they even got sponsors to make a trip to that country. But it was a local Dutch company that did business in Africa and sold their products there. So, just an example. Company workshop, so more advice for companies, how we can help them with innovating their business. This is kind of in the initial phases. So to be honest, we have more companies that want something, but we at the moment have problems that we have not enough students that can deliver something. We want to be very physical in creating things, so the models, the prototypes, can be very cheap materials, but as long as it's easily accessible. Because we have the technology schools, but if I want to use a machine at the technology schools, I first have to do the right study, I have to do the right course, and then perhaps I can have for a few hours this fancy machine. But what we want is to have it very easily accessible for, let's call it for dummies. Well, this is more some external things that we try to do. Our focus is very much on the creativity side, so the co-creation side. And a colleague of me, for instance, he's a researcher in the area of gaming, serious gaming, and then another researcher is very much doing network analysis, so how people cooperate, and we combine it into kind of game simulation in the area of electric boating. It's just some examples of projects we're doing. And then the most important part, of course, is the food and fun, because that's where it all comes together. And I think for Portuguese that's normal, because you like food and fun. But for Holland it's not normal. We're very business oriented, and the typical Dutch lunch, you know, anybody who visited Holland? Yeah, you liked your lunch that you got? No, I see very sad face, like, well, I didn't get any lunch. We give you a brown sandwich with one slice of cheese. Which is
Do you have lunch?
That's the lunch.
Do you have it?
Yes, you don't believe it, but it's the truth. And we're, as we say, the Dutch, they eat to work, and they don't work to eat. So eating is just a necessity, because you need the energy so you can start working again. But we want to turn that a little bit around, and because we realize it's a lot about relationships and meeting each other. So, to finish it up, this is kind of the scheme I showed again. I can go a lot more into the research subject, how we do that, but I thought perhaps it's nice to have some questions if there are any. Okay, thank you.
It's up to me to make some comments. Thank you very much for the presentation, from the story, from the journey of the institution. If there is something new from this meeting yesterday and today, well, at least for me, I was not so much aware of the history and situation of these polytechnics. I would say that we are Portuguese and Dutch polytechnics have different histories, different legacies, so different problems, but curiously both have something to learn from the other. It's not only Portuguese polytechnics that have something to learn, and a lot to learn, I guess, from the experience of these polytechnics in Holland, but perhaps they also have something to learn from our more density of second level, second cycle studies, master's studies in the Portuguese polytechnics. One of your slides about the region and the contacts, the network, the innovation network, something like that in the region, was probably the inspiration of our minister when he wrote about regions of knowledge in the regional document of the program of modernization. The regions of knowledge has been misunderstood in certain places as the idea of concentrating, of consolidating the institutions in one region. It was not. Really, the idea of calling for regions with knowledge was calling for the institutions in one region to cooperate between them in the kind of that innovative network, being the specialists of the problems and the needs of their region, and sharing that mission and sharing that knowledge and between them. So definitely your slide, I guess, has been an inspiration in previous times of the regions of knowledge in the program of modernization in Portugal. The connection between schools, training, territory, actors and world, and the world itself. The idea that focus on the problems of regions is compatible with the vision of world is my, at the end of the road, I'm in the world and I want to be important in the world. These are not incompatible, non-compatible ideas, but they can work together, and that is perhaps one of our challenges. So these were my comments about the presentation. Thank you very much, and I open the floor to discussion. Comments, please do.
From your presentation, it was not clear how do you integrate these in your curriculum. Is this part of the activities as a final year project of the students? They do integrate the activities right from the first year in the syllabus of the courses?
Yeah, that's a good question. The question was how do we integrate in the curriculum? To be honest, it depends very much on the school. So all of our 70 fields of education, they have different programs. So some of them are rather fixed, so they are exam-based, and they know already now what they will do in 2 or 3 years on this day. Other ones, and that is for us the easier ones to work with, they are more competency-based and more project-based. And then if we are on time, for instance, the projects take 6 months, and then we can bring in products from the companies where the students will work on the projects. And this, again, it depends on the study. Some studies can only do it, for instance, in the 3rd or 4th year, but we have other studies that from the 1st year on are totally project-based with clients. So all the education is done in projects with clients, and then the learning goals are derived from the projects. So if I do, this is for instance in the multimedia design department, because they say our field is changing so rapidly, we can make a curriculum but that's old, not even next year, but tomorrow. So we want they have fields of expertise that the students need to learn, like technology, communication, I don't know exactly the curriculum. But they have to make a portfolio themselves about their learning goals and what they learned that semester. So, but the project-based studies are easier to work with, and the really more exam-based are rather difficult, so we have to kind of get them out in smart ways. But a lot is focused on the called minors, or minor is like half a semester, and if you can get it in that, then that works. If it's not there, then it's hard to get a connection. So it's an interesting challenge. Yeah. So what we are discussing at the moment, that if we really think that this design approach is so important, that we have to force all the educations to introduce some of it in their curriculum. But then the big question is how can we do that, because all the curriculums are full. So is it extra, or is it voluntary, or should they get something out of the curriculum, or is it like a side program? So this is one of the things we're puzzling at the moment. Yeah.
Next. Meanwhile, a comment I missed is I already spoke yesterday about the importance we give to the internationalization of the polytechnic system, and once again I would like to give an incentive to all schools, to everyone, try and go and visit the European institutions. We have these friends in Holland and Finland and other places. The experience of some of the institutes that send teams to these institutions, I mean Portuguese polytechnics that visit Finnish or Dutch polytechnics, has been very, very much useful. So I tell again, go visit, learn, and of course enjoy the trip. And this new call for projects includes some money to help that.
Yes, we are always open for cooperation. We're working on, for instance, some Erasmus Plus programs, which could be possibilities for cooperation. It's not all heaven on earth, because there's a fierce competition, low chance of getting them, and then the budgets are not super, but still it's more, you shouldn't do it only for the budget, but more for the network and to get to know these people on the other side of Europe, and to cooperate. Then it's very useful. Sure.
Do you get funds also from the organizations, from the local organizations? or your project is all comes from the government?
No, that's a good question. The question is if we get, where our funds come from, basically. Again, it depends, but for instance, the studies that cooperate most with the companies, they often charge budgets. So I know from the multimedia guys, they charge 2,000 euros to a company to do a project for them, and then they get 6 students for half a year. But then you need to have a field that the company is willing to pay for, of course. And then in that area they are, but they have often very specific questions like please give me a website or give me a video or give me the game, and then they can pay for it because it's more expensive to do it somewhere else. Others, they charge a little bit, like a few hundred euros or nothing. Yeah.
But the basic for my question is that you said that you show this your budget and compare to research universities, and then on the other hand you can do innovating things, and you can refurnish a whole building, and that was why I was curious.
Yeah, I'm curious
Where
too.
did you get the money?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. This is kind of the I don't know. I compare it to the sailing with the wind. So when you're sailing, sometimes you have the wind against, and sometimes you have the wind with you. And for this project, we had the political wind on our side. So then it made some things easier. I've also had times when I had the wind against, and I tried and tried and tried, and nothing happened, and I was on my own, for so to say. What also helps is if the politics and the other stakeholders like it. So the president of our organization, he's a former politician, and he's very good in linking to the winds of the politics. But then the big challenge is to link the political agendas to the agenda of your organization, because even if you are good friends with the politicians and you say we go left, but your organization says, well, that's fine for you, but we go right, and in Holland at least, people decide on their own. You can tell them what to do, but they will not do it. So I'm sure in Portugal it's a little bit different, but the Dutch are rather stubborn, and they only do things, especially in education, when they really are convinced that it's useful. So in this project we have a little bit luck, I would say. But it's not super big budgets. I mean, this project is 100 to 200,000 euros for so it's.
But you can, I think that it would be an idea if you are involved in changing one region, that the stakeholders of that region would become involved in that.
Well, at the moment we try, for instance, to get a EFRO, I think it's the same word here, like a regional development fund from Europe. But we only, and I think we have a chance of getting it, and then we'll have a little bit bigger budget. But we only get it because we are already doing it. So my original approach was, I first want the money, and then I'll start doing something. And then I have a colleague, and he said, no, we do it with our own small budgets, just start. And I said, well, we need much more. He said, well, we'll just do it with whatever we have, and you need some enthusiastic teachers. So we have some people that are really, they like it, and they do it in their evening hours, but of course they cannot do that forever. So at one time, you need some kind of successes. And the best thing is if outside people tell your bosses that you're doing a good job, because then they think, oh, perhaps it's useful. But if you tell your boss you're doing a good job, he says, yeah, that's, everybody tells me that. So if you can get outside stakeholders to be happy, that helps a lot. And now, after 1 or 2 years, now we may get the funding that we are looking for. But if we would have waited for it, they would never have given it, because they said, oh, here comes this University of Applied Science, and they only want to steal our money from the government, and we never get anything in return. So it's, I don't know, it's a magic trick. I don't know how to do it. I have some colleagues who help, and they are good in it, to be honest. Yeah. So, there's no magic I don't know. Yeah. Perhaps Professor Bizet can tell a little bit about it in the afternoon about the magic tricks. Yes.
How are the strategies between the university and the design factory aligned? Whether if they are aligned, how is the governance between the two? What are the relationships between?
Yeah, good question again. The question is how is the strategy of the big organization and the design factory aligned? Again, this is a puzzle because when I started this idea, the first question from within our organization was, well, why is this happening? This is a threat to our organization, and who is the boss here? And we have 4 institutes with 4 bosses, and there are departments below that. And most of them, they didn't like it because they thought it was a threat to their institutional power. And I've had 1 or 2 years of these discussions about organizational structures, and it was just very frustrating. So at the end I stopped. I said, this is not my field of expertise. I'm not patient enough. So either I quit now or I'll just do it. And then I was happy that the president of our organization, the politician guy, he said, no, you go for it. I said, well, you have to give me some budget because this is not going to work. So we just started it, but to be honest, we did it totally outside of our organization. So simple things like the logo and the communication. If I would have done it in my organization, I would get stuck immediately. Because we have very strict rules about how to communicate, how to put the logo, and I said, no, I want to create our own identity because we want to be a sharing platform. And this guy said, well, you can't do it, we will not help you, because this is our rules. And then we were lucky to go outside, and now, after 1 or 2 years, they say, oh, this is good for our PR. So, for instance, now in the strategic plan they embrace it as a great success, but that is only working because we did it outside, and now they want to, we get some friends and they like it and they want to be part of the success. But if we would have done it inside, I would still be in meetings only and people would still stop it, because at least in our culture, people, they don't like something that somebody else does. They want more like to, I don't know what it is, perhaps it's everywhere. They often say that the heroes of the previous innovation are the enemies of the new innovation, because people will more defend their current situation. But now, so I don't know if it gives you an answer to your question, but go outside helps a lot. And then if you have some outside friends that tell your organization that this is good, that helps even more. So perhaps that's a trick.
Big institutions are willing to align to talk to you.
Sorry?
And now from the big institution.
Now, yes. Of course, and again, the CEOs, they like it, the president, but the middle part they don't. But now they start to like it. And they ask, well, can we join you too, or is it only yours? And we say, no, please join, that's why we are here. We want to be this sharing platform. And also, to be honest, it's sometimes about people. So we had 1 or 2 persons that just, I don't know, I think they are a little bit autistically handicapped, but they just didn't want to cooperate in one way or another. And now we have other people at the same location, and suddenly the wind changes. So it's also often about the certain persons. So no, we have a very good cooperation. Yeah. Yes.
Last question.
Sorry.
Yeah, so just a question. I thought this is very interesting. Just a question. What do you think are the limitations of this approach? For instance, you say the curriculum, they always have to be renovated because everything gets old in a minute. But for the case, for example, an engineering institute, where you have students, where you have maybe only after 2 or 3 years they can make something useful, in a project for some company or so, where you really have knowledge which has to be consolidated, and to make system engineering and so on. Do you think this can be transferred, this approach, to this kind of institutions?
Well, to be honest, I think the technology departments are the easy ones, because it's so very practical what the students create there. I think it has to do a lot with expectation management towards your partners, because I think also first and second year students, especially in technology, they can very well work for projects for clients. And what I, for instance, did at the Eindhoven University, we started a project with an external partner who gives a problem to all the students. Then the students start working for it for 2 or 3 or 4 months. The client is not coming, but at the end, they all present their products or things that they invented to the same client, and then he kind of is a jury and gives them. So it's very limited time that it costs for the company, because they come once as introduction and one at the end. But it's very inspiring for the students, because now suddenly they're working for a real client and they're very motivated to make a nice product. Again, it has to do with expectation management, because if you promise the client that he will have a fully working prototype which can be to the market in 2 months, he'll be certainly disappointed. So a colleague of me, he says, with this student project, there is one thing we can guarantee, and that's that we send you a bill, and the rest we cannot guarantee. So it is also part of building a track record. So I think you would start slowly and not promise too much, but often just the ideas that are generated through these projects, they're very useful for the organizations. So I think it can be from first to you. I think for us the difficult ones are like studies like accountancy, even also the educational studies, because in Holland they get so much rules top down of what they have to do that there's very limited freedom in the curriculum. But it's a puzzle, so there are a lot of limitations, so don't see it as a kind of Bible, but it's a direction to go. Yeah.
So the companies, they don't see this as a consultants, maybe also some kind of social responsibility, or to get it in touch, to build up this culture with institutions.
Yeah, I think companies are not so much in social responsibility. They really think it's useful for them. Perhaps sometimes they want to select the good students, but I think many companies are very busy, so they don't have time for innovation or change, and then doing this, that students work on a certain subject that's not very urgent, but more a little longer term. It gives them, I mean, it's a very low investment that they have a report, and they can get, if they get 1 or 2 good ideas from it, that's already beneficial. So, but it depends on the entrepreneur also. I mean, some of them just like the good ideas of the students and they like to work that way. Others, they are, I don't know, so it depends. I mean, it's also a matter of, but it's a matter of building a relation with the company. So if you just come and say, I want to do a project and then disappear and never come back, it's also when things go wrong, how you react and solve it, and perhaps that's even more important. If you solve a problem, then they'll be your friend even better than when you have a successful project. So.
Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you.